Welcome to Ready, Set, Grow. I am Kathy from Sunset Flowerland and Greenhouses, and this is Rachel. And today we have picked some of our favorite herbs and we're going to talk a little bit on how to grow them. And we'll leave the using of them up to you, because there's lots of ways to use them. They're really easy to grow. They're fun to grow, and they're instant. I mean, when you buy your herbs, you can start using this today. Take it home and wash it, and you can use it tonight. So it's instant gratification. Well, kind of the definition for herb is that it flavors your food. So there is so many plants that you can use to flavor your foods, and you can use them every night. And again, it's a wonderful thing for children to go out and pick a piece of parsley and put it on their plate, so that they can see how their food is grown and used, and they can help you with the cooking of it and put them in. Go pick it and use it in cooking dinner, and it just really, kids love that. The other aspect of herbs that I really like is that some of them can grow in really small spaces. You don't need a huge garden. You don't need a huge pot. Some of them will even grow on a windowsill inside the house. So they're very versatile and fun to use. So Rachel and I have picked some. Do you want to go first, Rachel, with what you picked as your favorite herb?
Sure. It's so hard to decide. So I got a few here. And that's the beauty of it, is something like basil or lavender has many different varieties. So you might find one that works better for you than others. This one here that I've chose is a lavender. And of course, we're probably all familiar with it for potpourris, but it can be used for teas. It does really well outside, but it works perfectly on a windowsill, sunny and bright as possible. I wish you could smell it, but it truly does, just lifts up the room. And
yeah. With this type of lavender, this is really fast growing. It's so you can prune it. In fact, you have to prune it. If you just left it to grow, it would take over your windowsill. So you definitely want to take your scissors and snip them back. I haven't got any. Can I snip your lavender?
Yeah, go right ahead, please do.
Yeah, and now you've got some. You can dry them, use them fresh, and
this will continue to grow.
Yes. Oh, does it smell good?
Some varieties of lavender do grow in the garden. This is a zone 5, and zones are based on temperature. A lot of the herbs that we're familiar with are Mediterranean, which is that hot, burning sun. And something that they often are misconstrued with is that they want to be dry, when really they just want good drainage. So whether it's in the garden or in a pot on your windowsill, it's got to have really free-flowing, quick drainage soil, but it does need to be watered. They love that.
How big a pot are you thinking that these two, this one I think is not a big enough pot, is it?
It's probably not. No, even though it does look beautiful and instant gratification the way you were describing. To get a nice, full, healthy pot, you might need something a little bit bigger. I wonder if even this is more appropriate for lavender.
Yeah.
And I would say probably nothing smaller than this size here, 6-inch pot, and it will grow in beautifully, again, because you're snipping at it, keeping it pruned, and using it on a regular basis.
All right, do I get to talk about mine?
Yeah,
Yes, all right. I love parsley. I have it growing in my garden, but I also like to have a pot of parsley on my deck because I use it so much. Just go out and you just snip off a leaf and you're ready to go. The parsley, this is triple curled, and I grow it because I think it's really pretty. The plain parsley, the leaf is there a plain parsley? The plain parsley, the leaf isn't anywhere near as pretty, but it has more flavor. So if you want pretty, extra triple curled. If you want plain, here comes Rachel with a plain. See, mine's prettier.
But mine's more flavorful.
Yes, it is. There we go. Parsley gets big. I mean, my parsley in my garden is going to be like this. So you need a big pot. What size do you think that is?
Oh my gosh, this is probably what, a 10-inch?
10 or yeah.
This is 12, you're right.
10 or 12. One parsley in the middle, and we're not going to plant them, but we just want you to see the size pot. Plant it in, set it outside your kitchen door, and you know what? You got parsley all summer. And if you have a southern sliding glass door with lots of sun in the winter, bring it in. You'll have fresh parsley all winter, because it would do good, but it does need that full sun exposure in the winter. And it likes sun in the summer, but in the winter it's hugely important to have full sun. All right, which one's yours?
Oh, these are all mine. You might be familiar with the garden sage. Of course, there are ornamental sages like the Russian sage. those are fantastic, but this is the silver leaf, and it's the garden sage that's edible. It has a really pungent smell to it, but the beauty with this is it has many different types as well. Something a little bit more decorative that's also edible is the variegated golden leaf, and then this is the variegated tricolor sage.
You can put herbs together.
Yeah.
Would this be big enough pot, do you think, for?
I think so.
I think so too, because if you cut them and use them.
Exactly, they'll keep growing. And they do have a very similar flavor. You want to make sure that if you're using your culinary herbs, you aren't eating the ornamental. But the beauty of these here is that they have both the color, the texture, and the flavor. So it's a win-win.
Yes, perfect. And I use sage. I love sage on my poultry and turkey and stuff like that. So you'd have to bring the pot in for Thanksgiving so you have it for your turkey.
Definitely.
All right, I'm going to talk about mint. Mint, oh, there's so many kinds of mint. How many kinds of mint you got, Rachel? I have here
Stars.
spearmint and chocolate. What else you got? Apple?
Oh, we have apple mint, we have lemon mint, there is curly mint, but this is new to me. This is strawberry mint.
Oh, let me smell that.
I know.
When you smell something, you just have to lightly brush the leaf to get the aroma. Whoa, all right. I still like mine.
I don't know. I think they should call it strawberry milkshake mint. 'Cause not always do they come true, and especially, it sounds like you might be potting yours up. Are you gonna?
Nope,
No. Oh,
nope.
for you. Okay. Because if you do pot them together the way the sages were in one pot, the different kinds of flavors will mix together, and they'll be kind of muddy. So if you are gonna pot them up, I would recommend doing one pot per plant, and that's going to keep the flavor nice and clear, and it's not going to be like this mixture of your lemon, strawberry, and mint.
The and a pot minimal. I mean, this would be minimal size for a mint. You can go bigger. Mint is aggressive and big, and you could have several pots of mint on your deck. But as she said, gives each one a different one. But I use a lot of mint. There's nothing better than going out when you're having iced tea and picking off, just picking off a sprig and putting it in your iced tea. So I'm not sure a pot would be enough. It might. They get big. But the best thing to do with your mints is do not plant them in your garden. If you plant it in your garden, I don't care how big your garden is, you're going to have a garden of just mint. They are aggressive. They will take over. They would overpower.
You can see it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
look.
taking off right now.
Yeah, this is chocolate, and it does smell and taste like chocolate. So what you want to do is, hopefully you have a boundary on your property that is away from your house, on a wood lot, on some shrubs, some bushes. Put it over there. Let it take off into the woods and take off on your boundary line, and give it plenty of room. And you could have a bed of mint 6-10 feet. It will take off, but make sure you put it where you don't want to grow other herbs and flowers.
It will take right over.
Yes, it will. All right.
Well, a little more friendly herb is, I see it's one of your favorites, but it's also one of my
Oh,
favorites,
yeah.
is the basil. And again, there are many different types. You may be familiar with the large leaf Italian basil, but that is a very Mediterranean, very hot, heat, sun-loving herb, and it can be kind of a struggle. So I wanted to show you some alternatives. This is one of my favorite alternatives to the regular Italian basil, and it is called the African blue basil. And as you can tell,
Yeah.
it's obviously very blue, and the smell is basil-y. It's a little bit cooler than the flavors before, but it gets, you can snip it very easily. It's very rugged, very tough. So you snip that right off. You can even eat the flowers if you'd like, but toss something like that in your salad, or cooking it up is going to work just like your other regular basil, but this one is really easy to grow.
Yeah. One of the beautiful things about the blue basil is regular basil. This one is my favorite. Is Spicy Globe. It grows moundy. It smells good. I just love it. But this is an annual. This is going to grow and produce its leaves. It's going to flower. You can snip the flowers off, trying to make it last longer, but it's an annual, which means it's only going to last one season. So when it's done, it's dead. You could bring it in the house. It isn't going to matter. It's going to die. It's done. But the African blue, you can just keep cutting it back and keep growing it, so that you could put into a pot, a nice sized pot. Would this one be better, you think?
Ooh, yes.
I think that one might be a little big.
Think about
And then bring it in the house, and it will keep going and going and going and going. Where this one, my favorite, Spicy Globe, after he's done his thing, is done. This really works great in spaghetti sauces.
Ooh.
Yes,
We'll
a
have to
little
try.
different flavor.
Nice. It's not too spicy though.
No, I just really like it. Yeah,
good.
I like it better than regular.
Awesome. Speaking of spicy, I see you have some nasturtium.
Oh, nasturtium, that's the one you want. Yeah. This one is the nasturtium. I don't know that you can really focus in on the flower. It has beautiful orange and yellow flowers, but I plant this with my cucumbers. You can eat the flower if you want. It's beautiful. I can imagine how beautiful they are in a salad, but you can eat the flower. But this nasturtium also will repel cucumber beetle. And knock on wood, I've lived where I live for almost 40 years, and every year I plant my cucumbers and my nasturtiums, and I haven't had cucumber beetle yet.
I had
So
no idea.
yeah, it's just great. And so even if you did a planter with a cucumber, there might be room. It'd have to be a little bit bigger planter, but there might be room for a little nasturtium on the side. So you got a lot of color. In your garden, and you can eat the flower, and it attracts bees,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
beautiful.
The flower is very spicy.
Yes. Is it? I've never eaten it. I
Yeah.
can't eat a flower. Even when I'm in a restaurant and they have like the orchids, I can't eat them. I take them home and put them in water. We got, I got thyme.
Ooh,
Yes.
thyme.
Thyme smells wonderful. This is variegated thyme. What else you got for thymes? You have other thymes? You have golden?
We have, let's see, pardon my reach. We have some variegated lemon thyme, which I wish you could smell. It has an amazing lemon aroma. These beauties here are an upright. And this is a French thyme. You can see the difference between the English version, which drapes down, and this, which wants to grow up. But the flavors are comparable. I really enjoy. I think the French thyme is a little sturdier, a little hardier, but the English thyme as well here, and the silver thyme that she has are just super
Yes.
pungent, super delicious.
And people use thyme a lot for cooking, but this is kind of the size pot you would want to put it in to let it grow. But thyme is also, especially woolly thyme. I don't think we have any right here, but we have some. Is this thyme going to work as far as between stones?
Yes.
Oh,
absolutely.
that smells so good when you do a walkway with that.
Yeah, this is known as creeping thyme. As you can see, it's creeping along, and it's very low growing. It's a ground cover, which means if you put it in a spot that's really sunny, it will just kind of creep around. It will work through stones, work through your other plants, and then it will tolerate some mild steps, and it smells amazing as you walk through your garden. It's super fun. Interestingly enough, I did not realize until recently, but thyme is actually a type of shrub. It will get kind of woody. And so it needs a lot of sun to stay nice and full, or otherwise it will kind of get straggly and you see these little leaves, little twigs. But if you snip and keep pruning the way we've talked about the other lavenders and the basils and stuff, they'll stay nice and bushy and keep filling in, and you can keep eating the thyme.
Yes, I tried to establish it between my flagstones and my walkway, and it was hard. You need to water it. You need to not step on it for a while.
Oh.
It took a bit to get it established, but then when we did, it was amazing. So, do we have time for more herbs?
We do have more thyme.
Oh, wonderful! We got. I want to do that one.
Oh, absolutely. I think
This
it's a great
has
choice.
the most brilliant red tube-shaped flower. It's on a spike and it has a tube-shaped flower. So hummingbirds are going to go insane over it. And
What is it?
It is pineapple sage. So you've got the beauty of the red flower, the hummingbirds, but when you go like this gently, it smells exactly like pineapple.
I can smell it.
Yeah, so I just think this is it gets big. So when you put it in your garden, again, you're going to need this size pot. When you put it in your garden, you're going to expect a bush like this. So give it plenty of room, but it will not survive the winter. You'd have to either dig it or bring it in or do something so it would be in the garden.
Another herb that will grow really well in the ground is the lemon grass. Now, again, I'm not sure if it will make it through one of our winters. It's worth an experiment, and of course, it's super popular on Pinterest and online right now. Saying things like it will keep bugs away. I'm not so sure about that, but I do know that it's just beautiful in the garden. It smells a little bit of lemon, but when it's dry, the taste, it just pops exactly like lemon. So really beautiful plant all around, regardless if you eat it or not. I don't know if it's going to keep the bugs away.
That would be nice,
I know.
especially here in Maine. Another one of my favorite herbs is rosemary. It's really slow growing. A lot of people use it in cooking. Smells wonderful, but rosemary is a little different than some of the other herbs we talked about. It isn't one that you can just plop in this big pot. I mean, a rosemary bush will get like this if you can bring it in the house for the winter and have it from year to year. I mean, they'll get like that, but it's going to take a couple of years. So you would want to start small. This is when you're going to have to start small. When it fills that pot, move up to this one, and when it fills that pot, move into the big one. And if you want to keep going and going, I mean, year after year, your pot would get bigger and bigger, and you could have a really good-sized shrub. But this is the upright one, which would be beautiful in the end in one of these pots. It's going to get tall and bushy.
Just like a tree, yeah.
Exactly. But then we have this one. This one is trailing. And so when it goes in the pot, it's going to trail down over. And I think Rach has got a one that we've had that's probably a year older than this.
There's some beautiful things in a hanging basket.
Oh, lovely hanging. So, and have outside on your patio to have even in a big pot like that.
Yeah, it will get purple flowers all the way down, both the rosemary and the trailing rosemary. But as far as I understand, this tastes a little pinier. So if you really like that rosemary taste, you may want to consider trying a trailing, because it's definitely, ooh, I can even just roughing it up. It smells very
just set it in the pot, see how pretty it is.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Perfect. I think we did a lot of herbs.
We didn't nearly cover them all, but I hope it's a good introduction to all the different assortment of herbs that are out there. Maybe encourage you to find something new and different, and maybe a new favorite. Thanks again.
My partner's family had a house in Penobscot, and so we went there for a while, and then we decided to move further west and toward the mountains. Hi, I'm Lonnie Keels. My partner and I moved from Ohio to Cornville, Maine in January of 2021. I started out as a landscaper back in my 20s. So I've been really interested in gardening for, I would say, 25 years. So I started as a landscaper. I became a grower at a nursery in Ohio, and then I work at Sunset Greenhouse here in Maine. The difference between gardening in Ohio and Maine mostly is every time you dig a hole in Maine, you hit a rock. And there's a lot of black flies. We don't have that in Ohio, but really the growing zone's about the same. So we do have a lot of the same plants. Some of the challenges that we've had here in gardening, probably mainly I would say that the season starts about a month later than it does in Ohio. So like we were chomping at the bit to get seeds started and put stuff in the ground, and we just couldn't wait to do it. So we have found some new things here in Maine. They're not really new to us, but we've seen them growing in the wild in Maine that we didn't have in Ohio, like the lupin. We really couldn't believe they were everywhere. Even in the ditch, by the creek, they're everywhere. And foxglove just growing in the woods wild when we were hiking. We couldn't believe we saw that. It was really cool. We have 10 acres here, so we have a lot of goals for our gardens, and we don't want to mow just 4 acres of lawn all the time. So we are adding in about a half an acre so far of wildflowers. There was lawn, and we stopped mowing it and letting the wildflowers come up, which just in the past 3 weeks we've had half a dozen new flowers in the yard that we never saw before. Also, we have a garden in the back that's, I would say it's probably 20 by 60. So, I mean, there was a small garden there, but we've expanded that, and we just want to grow a lot of vegetables and our own food. All right, so we're going to take a walk around the property, and I'm going to show you some projects we're working on. So the area that we're coming into now is part of the lawn that we decided to let grow back into like a meadow to feed the bees and have some nature habitat. So just in 3 weeks, we've gotten it to grow quite a bit, and we have a lot of different wildflowers that have come up, and shockingly, we're not going to have to do that too much to it to get a meadow. So we knew when we moved here that we wanted to have a big garden, and when we first started, the garden was just a small little plot down there, probably about 15 by 15. You can see where the rhubarb is where it used to stop. And so we rototilled all the way up to here. It's probably about, 60, 70 feet long now. And so the marigolds are all the way around because the people tell me that the critters will stay away from your garden if you have marigolds. So this end of the garden we have seeds for sunflowers and corn to start growing on this end. And down there we have all the peppers and squash and green beans and tomatoes. Buying the property, we didn't even know that there was a cemetery located right at the back edge of the property. And so once we discovered that, I started getting in my head that, obviously with all the ferns and everything that's grown up in here, you can barely see the tombstones anymore. So it's going to be my pet project over the summer to get it cleaned up and get it presentable back to a regular good-looking cemetery again. Interestingly, we discovered the cemetery after moving in, started looking at some of the stones and the people's names that are on the stones and dates, and it turned out that the last name of some of the people buried here are also the same as my partner's grandmother's maiden name. So he could have relatives buried here in this cemetery.
Hello, it's Rachel again from Sunset Greenhouses. We're here to do another planter. We had so much fun last time and we did a sunny one. I wanted to make sure that we got some color for all the shady spots that are out there too. So I got my planter all set up and I've got a lovely assortment of shade plants today. There's quite a few out there. There's a lot more than people might expect. So I wanted to show the color for the shady spots, especially whites and light colors really pop up. They reflect the light that is there and really illuminates those darker corners of our house. And having it in a planter, you can move it around, adjust it to whatever flower is most beautiful that day, or you can put it in another spot for watering. Here I've chosen a couple of tall ones. These are going to be the focal point for our planter. You might recognize these. They're not quite open, but they're going to be beautiful ballerina form. They're called a fuchsia. And these here are another star for the shady corners of the garden, and they're known as a begonia. Now, we mentioned deadheading before. These do not need to be deadheaded. Most begonias don't. The fuchsias, however, need a little extra care, but I find it's really quite nice to once a week go in and just pick off the seed pods and spend some time with the plants as well. So, with this lovely palette I've got chosen here, I want to start with the main show, the star of the show, if you will, my fuchsia. And until I get my basic composition down, I want to leave them in the pots and make sure I can move around freely to get the design that I really want to go for. Now, two plants that I have here you might recognize. These are impatiens. This little beauty here is a double impatient, and it can tolerate a little bit of sun, but does really well in those shady spots. It doesn't need to be deadheaded. It just keeps going and going. I'd like a little bit on the drier side, but in the pot you can control the water, and it makes it a perfect little planting companion. This here is the New Guinea impatient. Again, it can tolerate a little bit of sun, but it mostly wants, all these plants really want that morning sun or late afternoon. The hot, burning August sun in the noontime is a little bit too much for these plants because they're a little bit more delicate, but they make perfect little shade containers. I think I like that, kind of working in and amongst. Here I have a little mixture of, again, you can see some regular impatiens. This is the flat version versus the double, which has many petals in there. These here are coleus, and they're going to make great little fillers once I get my main plants planted. So I think I will use this. I do like that. Now I prepped my pot with a little bit of packing peanuts down at the bottom. I can show you here. There's probably about an inch of packing peanuts down there. And again, that's going to make it a little lighter and give it much better drainage for you. And we got a lot of good roots in there. Just give them a little tickle, break them up. Ooh. Now I think this is going to be the front of my planter, so I want to have most of my blossoms visible, but you can have some off to the side too. It adds a little bit of movement, especially in the wind. And I'm going to add my double impatient. And it's okay to turn them, to tilt them even in a way that's going to make it most pleasing, but also the most full. You want it instantly full without crowding them too much. Because they need the room to grow down here, but they got to be nice compositionally speaking up here. Ooh, and I think that will set in nicely right there. Just kind of working them around each other. Now I'm going to choose one of my coleus, one of these smaller plants. These little 6-pack plants are perfect to just kind of put in the little corners. Again, making sure that all the roots are covered as best as possible. And I think I have room for one more. Oh, it's perfect. And I just kind of tap the soil, make sure it gets down all amongst the roots, and all the roots are nice and covered. And there you have a beautiful display for the shade. With a little bit of deadheading, it should take all the way through autumn till the frost gets it. Let's water it in. You want to make sure that when you water in, you're getting right down into the dirt, not over the top of your plants. And water in nice and slowly so as not to splash all the soil back out. So I'd fill the pot once and then let it drain down. I fill it up a second time and then a third time, and that should be a well-watered planter ready to set in your shady spot. Now that we have these lovely planters, they do need a little bit of upkeep, especially in the midsummer. A lot of the nutrients that you've put in the soil have been used up by the flowers that have come and gone. So it does pay off a big time to add a little bit of nutrients back into the soil, especially around July and August when it really starts getting hot and it starts to take a toll on the plants themselves. They need to be fed and cared for. So adding a little bit of fertilizer to your planter at that time, about July, August, is really going to make a huge improvement and carry out the plants through the rest of the season. And there's a large selection to choose from. So we can narrow it down to a couple of different options, but I find that with the planters, the greatest option is going to be water soluble. That way, whenever you water the plant, it's going to get a little bit of food, and that's going to make them a little bit stronger to bear with that hot autumn sun that's coming. So some plant food that I'm familiar with include these 3 varieties, but of course there's lots. And I will always encourage you to read the directions. Each label is going to be a little bit different. Each label is going to do a little something different. But look mostly for your flowering planters, something that says either Bloom Booster or Flower Power, something of the sort. Miracle-Gro does great. Osmocote is really good, as well as Jax, which is what we use here. If you open up the packaging, you can see that some of them are pelleted, and the pellets are really easy. In fact, it's my preference because it's just again, following the directions. It's a simple application directly to the soil. So you're going to put it right down in there, make sure it's kind of most, visible. It's not down in the soil, but every time you water, that is going to take a little bit of nutrients, and it's going to put it down just enough so that the roots can absorb it. And again, really following the directions to see how much you might need, whether it's a teaspoon every couple of weeks. But every label is going to be different. Every label is going to be worthwhile though. Other types of fertilizers include water-soluble mixtures. It's usually a powder form that comes with many different name brands, but the application is very simple and also the same. Reading your labels though is going to be the best way to decide what works for you. But usually it's just a tablespoon or a small amount added to your water before you water the plants. So put it in a gallon bucket, or you can mix it right into your watering can, depending on the size. Again, making sure you read the label to know exactly what you need and what plants. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed all the magical ways that you can mix plants together, both for the sun and shade. But I hope you have a wonderful time in the garden. Join us next time on Ready, Set, Grow.